Welcome back to the Move podcast. We've got a little bit of time here to check in, sort of midweek from week one of the Giro d'Italia, and not without its drama at all. What a wild start, wild weather. If you haven't been watching, it's been really exciting. And also on this show, you have to stick around because Johan is fired up. He is fired up, and he's going to share some stories, or one story in particular, just sort of an untold, off-the-record, what really happens at the Giro. So we'll do that story. After we kind of recap stages 1 through 6, we'll get Johan's story. So you definitely want to stick around for that. Before we jump into the beginning of this year's Giro, let's check in with Lance with messages from a couple of our sponsors.
And talk about being a fan of something. Let's talk about Manscaped. Let's go ahead and tell the world, right, that the leaders in below-the-waist grooming are traveling north of your South Pole with their revolutionary grooming products. The brand new Weed Whacker 2.0 and their new beard line confirms they have all the best tools for your hygiene toolbox. Time for you to upgrade your game by going to manscaped.com. Using the code THEMOVE gets you 20% off. But gentlemen, while you're there, check out the Beard Hedger Pro Kit. This is one, I can barely grow a beard, so George is all about this. A couple of other cool factoids: waterproof, cordless trimmer, rotary wheel, 20 hair cutting links, all with one guard. An amazing thing. Also, and big thanks to everybody at Manscaped for really pitching in for the fight against cancer, specifically the fight against testicular cancer. Good on you. Again, head on over to manscaped.com. Use the code THEMOVE. That gets you 20% off and free shipping. Manscaped.com. Today's show also brought to you by Ventum. This is our bike, our go-to bike of choice for not just myself, but George as well. We just got our new NS1s. We were just over in Europe and have been just riding constantly on the new NS1. Thing's a damn rocket ship. Of course, their gravel bike, the GS1, is also a gravel rocket ship. It's been amazing. There's so many bikes and so many options out there. I got to say, this one has really gotten my attention, and I finally converted the Diva, George, over to the Ventum. The brand is totally kicking ass. Dedicated customer support to help you out at every step of the purchasing process. They're also producing great content. They'll make you inspired to ride your bike. We all need that. Check out their socials on Instagram and YouTube. It's at Ventum Racing. Special offer. Get 10% off when you use the code WEDO at checkout over at ventumracing.com/themove. Again, that's ventumracing.com/themove. Checkout code is WEDO. Gets you 10% off.
All right, guys, let's jump right into a very exciting, dramatic first week of the Giro. Not even a first complete week. My gosh, it's only Thursday. But a lot of riders hitting the pavement. No surprises that Remco takes the first pink jersey after stage 1. And then, as you guys predicted in our preview show, it would be wise for him to give that jersey up. So let's start with that. Let's start with Remco, his form, having the jersey, giving it away. I think if we have a lot of listeners who are new to pro cycling, the concept of giving away a leader's jersey doesn't even make sense. So let's start with that. Go ahead, guys.
Yeah, I mean, I think first of all, the stage 1 was incredible. His performance there was, I think, something that people, and me included, I thought he had a chance. Although for me, the big favorite was Filippo Ganna. It was a 19.5 kilometer time trial. But the way Remco, how you say that, ridiculed basically his competition was unbelievable. It confirms that he's a guy who, when he prepares for an objective, he comes in unbelievably strong. The average speed was crazy at 55.5 kilometers average speed, including a climb of 2.5 kilometers at the end. And before the climb, his average speed was 58.5 kilometers per hour. That's just super, super fast. But especially the difference between him and Primož Roglič, his big rival, 43 seconds after stage 1, that's huge. And I can only imagine, I don't think Roglič expected to win. against him, but definitely not lose 43 seconds. So that set a pace that this, from day one, basically, people, it's game over. That's obviously not what a 3-week stage is about. It's 3 weeks and a lot of things can happen. And so I think him basically thinking he could have the jersey after stage one, I think he was convinced he was going to get it, because these guys with that kind of champions mentality, that's the way they think. He had already told before the race that if he got the jersey on day one, that on day 4 he would probably want to create a situation to give it away. And I think that's a bit against his nature. So I have to say that's a sign that he has matured, that he agrees. He didn't want to lose the jersey, but he agrees that it's better, not for him, but for the team. So I think that's something I like, that he kind of agreed that it's better for on the long term in this Giro to not be in the leader's jersey and be able to spare his teammates of the work they have to do, and also spare himself of the extra stress 1 hour after every race, having to go to the podium, the doping control, the media. It adds up.
Spencer, do you want to elaborate on that too, and giving up the jersey?
Yeah, well, just to defend my best friend, Primoz Roglic, who for some reason I find myself rooting for in every stage race. So he loses 43 seconds to Evenepoel on stage one. But the crazy thing about Evenepoel on stage one is if you cut him just out of that results, everything looks normal. I mean, he beat Filippo Ganna, like probably one of the best time trials in the history of the sport, by 22 seconds, which is absolutely crazy. And Ganna had a pretty good race. So, you don't want to just be like, oh, wow, all these guys lost all this time. Joao Almeida lost 29 seconds. He's out. But Joao Almeida had a pretty good ride. We don't want to lose focus of the fact that everyone's looking pretty good behind Remco, and then he's had a few crashes over the last few days. And now we've, it's the Giro snow globe, I call it. Like everything's been shaken up over the first week. First pretty hard mountain summit finish tomorrow. And I think it's going to be a lot more even than we thought after stage one. I think there was a lot of people after stage one saying this race is over. Evenepoel is going to ride easy victory. I mean, Johan and I in our betting podcast Outcomes, we've been watching the GC odds every day. Evenepoel hasn't lost any time to real contenders. It's just his odds he's significantly worse odds to win the overall than he was on stage one, which doesn't make any sense really, because nothing's changed. It's just everyone's opinion of, oh, this is going to be a cakewalk has changed because he's been roughed up a little bit by this Giro over the first few weeks with some crashes. The team, actually we should talk about that stage 4, the pretty interesting stage where his quick step team, I thought was exposed as, this is good. They're maybe not as strong as we thought they were and as they showed at the Vuelta last year, which is a little bit simpler and more straightforward race, but they succeeded in giving away the jersey to Andreas Lekundsen. It's kind of like a pop quiz after today's stage, like who's leading this race? And I don't know if I could answer it right away. Like so much has happened, I forgot. Lekundsen is winning this race. That's just a lease deal. Like they're getting this thing back. They're not worried about it. But, they let him go up the road in a break. They pulled it. I thought they held the leash way too tight, and they actually had to sit up and let it go out before the final climb. Lekundsen gets the jersey by, what's he in the jersey by? 26 seconds, 28 seconds, 28 seconds. Evenepoel's totally isolated. His team gets dropped probably because they've been holding that leash too tight. And now they're going to probably get the jersey back tomorrow and try to have to hold it all the way to Rome if they want to win this race. Like, what were your thoughts on that, Johan? Did you think they should have given them more slack so they potentially even could have avoided the jersey after tomorrow's summit finish?
Yeah, I think I personally think so. I was a bit surprised also that Remco was completely isolated on that last climb on the stage that it's the stage that Paris-Peintre won, right? The French guy.
Yeah.
They'd done a lot of work, and then on top of that, I had the feeling that since they were so close, that Ineos kind of thought, hey, you know what? Let's pull a little bit so he doesn't lose the jersey.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
That's another way of looking at it, right? So Ineos started to pull. We didn't really know why. But in my opinion, they wanted to stay out of trouble. So they were on the front. But something tells me that they wanted to keep the pressure on Remco and on Soudal Quickstep. So in order to, have their complete team wiped out that stage. And on top of that, he kept the jersey. And it was close. I mean, if anything would have, if in the front they would have hesitated a little bit, then the peloton would have gone a little bit faster, or there was an attack they had to follow in the peloton, he would have kept the jersey.
Well, let's add to this, if people haven't been watching this first 6 days, when you think about anything can happen and it's not a done deal, everyone's hitting the deck a lot. The conditions are wet and sloppy, and the commentators are talking quite a bit about how the roads there are just slippier than normal. Even dry, they have some rough conditions.
Well, in that part of Italy, JB, it's, I don't know, probably pay less taxes or something. or the taxes are destined to a different thing. But the roads, especially around Napoli, there's a lot of potholes. The roads are not fixed. And on top of that, the past few stages, it was raining. It's a part of Italy where it doesn't rain that much. And today on the Marfil coast, they call it Costa de Marfil. Typically a stage in the Giro over those roads. All the riders know it. It is super, super, super stressful. Even when it's dry, it's slippery. And we saw it again today, that there was crashes that normally shouldn't be happening. But for sure, I think personally the two crashes of Remco Evenepoel yesterday, although today he says that it's not a big deal, we'll see tomorrow. Tomorrow is the worst day after you hit the deck, and he went down hard. He went down really hard, especially in that second crash. Then on top of that, there was a bike coming, like sliding from another guy who crashed, and it hit his back really, really heavily. So we'll see. Spencer, you seem to have information that Roglic crashed today, and I don't know if he's damaged or not.
Yeah, so the only reason I think Roglic crashed is because I noticed a tear in his shorts when he changed bikes in like the last 15 kilometers today. So, if you're just using deductive reasoning, how would you tear your shorts during a stage unless someone ran after him with some scissors? They're so excited. Napoli just won the league, then they cut his shorts. It probably was from some sort of crash. I think, it was rainy and cold on stages 3, 4, 5. If it would have been rainy today, it was rainy early in the stage. If it would have been rainy on that descent, it would have been a disaster. I mean, they really lucked out that it dried up. Those are technical roads, so I guess it's possible that he went down, tore his shorts. He didn't look beat up. I mean, that's kind of the same thing with Remco as well. It's been so wet that these crashes, they're sliding. Yeah. So they're not, it's not like we see Roglic the Tour when he looks like a mummy. They haven't lost as much skin as they normally would because of that rain.
Yeah, that's one of the things I noticed. I was thinking about it today with all the crashes I've seen. I can't believe people aren't out with broken bones, but it is definitely a slide. And Cavendish did the slide of the year.
Oh, that was that was crazy.
What place did he get sliding, by the way?
But he got fourth, no, because the guy who got fourth got relegated. But then I was thinking also, he was still holding his bike. But imagine that, because normally it's the bike, it's the transponder on the bike that gives the signal on the finish, on the photo finish, that you pass. So what would have happened if his bike just slides in front of him, and he's just and his bike passes the finish line. And he doesn't. What would have happened?
That's a great question.
Oh, is he technically finished?
Yeah.
Because we've seen Froome finish without a bike.
That's different, yeah.
The inverted Froome, yeah. And will this be the new marginal gain where sprinters are actually just chucking the bikes? Yeah. As they get within the last 25 meters. But he could have won that stage he was moving faster than the other sprinters when he was on the ground. He could have won that stage on the ground. I mean, that would have been an incredible stage win.
But I mean, he was obviously, he must have been hurt because today he got in trouble, earlier in the stage and that never made it back. So, these crashes, even if you're sliding, it's not good. It is not good. The day after, first of all, if you hit the deck, and even if there's no external injuries, your body starts a healing process from inside. There's little muscle tears. Everything needs to heal up, and it costs you. Your sleep is affected. You're not comfortable in the bed. I'm a bit worried for Remco tomorrow, actually. That he's not going to be at his full potential tomorrow.
That's interesting. It won't be the cakewalk we all thought. Plus, we have 2 more time trials come up, which really is in his favor. But can we go back to Cavendish a little bit while we're touching on him? Because, and you guys obviously know way more than I do, but in my mind, I'm thinking, well, nothing's more important than the tour record. Mark Cavendish is going for that, then retire, right? The most tour wins. He's hitting the deck here in these sloppy conditions. Would it not make more sense to pull out of this Giro and just focus on that one remaining goal? Or what is your thought on that?
What do you think, Spencer?
It's a valid question. I personally think he needs to stay because before he crashed yesterday, he looked good, like better than we've seen him all year. So it's like hints that he's building enough form. I still think the positioning's a problem. Like he was 12th going into the last kilometer. Caden Groves was 2nd, and Caden Groves won the stage. So I think these younger sprinters just go longer now. They're doing 15, 20-second efforts as opposed to 12 to 10, which is what they used to do in the past. And maybe Cavendish, without a team, hasn't quite adjusted to that. He needs to try to get further up. But, he looks good. I still think he needs to build a little bit more confidence, at least get a podium before he goes into the Tour. I think it's hard to go into the Tour de France cold and start sprinting. Stage 10 would be a good stage for him to try. And, he did crash today again, which is not good because he crashed yesterday really hard. But frankly, getting dropped early by Ineos, oddly, we can talk about that. Why the heck were they pacing? But getting dropped early, not the worst thing in the world for him. He just gets a nice tempo ride off the back. He's not putting himself in trouble. That's better for you than just fighting to stay in the group when you're not feeling well, mixing up in the sprint if you're not confident after you crash. So, some of this isn't the worst. Tomorrow, he just has to ride in the Gruppetto. Sunday, easy day in the time trial. Monday, rest day, try to win Tuesday. So I would stay at least until then.
Yeah, I think he needs to build form. Teams wise, I really do not understand the choice they made, unless Cavendish has decided at the last moment to enter the Giro. But I don't understand the choice they made in the team composition that some of the guys that can help him a little bit, and one of them being Kees Bol, who came to Astana specifically to assist Cavendish in the sprints, is not there. So I can only suspect that he wanted to ride the Giro to build form and to try out his speed a little bit. And I think more than getting a podium obviously would be good, but I personally think he needs to win a stage to get the real confidence of himself and his team to be able to go for a stage win in the Tour. But you know what? The Tour is the Tour, and Cavendish at the Tour is a different animal usually. So I would not write him off yet. I think he has a chance to win a stage in the Tour, but it would be nice for him if he could win a stage in the Giro. And the competition is there. It's we've seen Caden Groves shows that he's a fast sprinter.
I don't believe we've ever talked about Jonathan Milan on this podcast before.
Jonathan Milan. I don't know if we talked about him when he's Olympic champion team pursuit. And then he's a super fast individual pursuiter too, who apparently has worked on his speed and his explosiveness specifically for this Giro, but that first stage win was impressive. That kind of that difference in speed and the distance with which he won that first sprint, that was like, wow, where does this guy come out from, you know?
And he's only 22 years of age, by the way.
Yeah.
And yeah, we felt pretty silly on our outcomes podcast after stage 2, thinking, wow, this guy's the fastest sprinter in the race, and we didn't even mention him in our preview. But you know, he's made a few. I guess the 22-year-old age makes sense. Like yesterday, he was sprinting in his rain jacket. Not ideal, because think how much these bikes cost, how much money they're putting into the aerodynamics, and then you have $100 rain jacket on that's slowing you down and heating you up. And then today, Mads Pedersen just trusted that Fernando Gaviria would go with 350 meters to go, because that's what Gaviria does, right on his wheel. And then Milan's more powerful than Pedersen and faster, but Milan's sitting right out in the wind next to Pedersen, getting absolutely no draft. And then Pedersen can slingshot around Gaviria, win the stage. Milan finishes second. Like, if he just tweaked a few, you know, don't wear rain jackets when you sprint, try to be in the draft of other riders, he could really be a force in these sprints.
Hey, Spencer, you know about today's sprint result. I think you know somebody who picked number 1 and 2.
Yeah. And my guy actually didn't win today, but I think if you would have bet all of our, we actually picked Pedersen, Milan, and Groves. If you just would have bet them for the podium, Johan's picks would have netted you a lot of money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anyways, that's on a side note. Sorry.
And you guys are going to have to help guide me. It was an unusual tour for me. I actually got to listen to a lot of it. I was road tripping back from Chattanooga, starting early in the morning. I got to listen to most of the race, the entire coverage, but wasn't able to stop and take notes and stuff. So things are a little bit fuzzy. What else do we want to focus on for stages 1 through 6?
I think we need to talk about the Michael Matthews victory, especially the effort and the quality of the team that day. His team, J. Kualula, was incredible. You know, I think it was a super deserved win. He was confident. He was never in trouble on the climbs. Pedersen was the other guy, which his team on stage 3 took initiative, but actually Pedersen did get in difficulties, made it back. But I was, you know, happy for Michael Matthews after the hard work from his team, and especially I saw 2 riders on that team who had made a big impression on me on that stage. One was Filippo Zana, not Filippo Ganna, Filippo Zana. It's the Italian champion who's on J. Kualula. He did an amazing job, basically doing the whole first climb by himself, putting people in trouble. And then secondly, this Australian guy, Callum Scottson. I had never, I had read the name, but I had never looked into him. He's 25 or 26 years old. But what this guy did in that stage when the whole peloton was tired, super tired, and he set a pace on that last climb, 3rd category climb, but to be able to do that, not getting any help from anybody, dropping Pedersen and a few of his teammates, and then making it to the top, lose a few positions, come back in it, and then still driving it to the finish. I discovered a guy there that personally, I said it on La Movida. If I'm Patrick Lefevre, I try to get that guy on my team as a helper for, you know, the middle mountain stages, even some of the hilly stages. That guy was, I mean, it's an unknown name, but I was really impressed with his performance on stage 3.
Are you still mentally, when you watch a race, it sounds like you're still mentally putting together a team. You're like, I want this guy. I want this guy.
I mean, this guy
from it, right?
I would, if I would have been a team manager right now, I'm going after that guy for sure. Yeah.
Go ahead, Spencer.
I just wanted to shout out Jayco in general. I mean, Michael Matthews, I said before stage 3, this guy definitely won't win. He's past his prime. He can't win sprints anymore. They made that race so hard. Actually, the 40K of that stage was like the platonic ideal of a bike race. It was beautiful racing. But Jayco raced it perfectly, made it so hard, as Johan said, just kind of pulling strong riders out of the woodwork. And then, so they win the sprint, but then they recognize today, you know, sometimes I call it like Grand Tour delusion syndrome, where you think, well, we won a sprint, so let's do all the sprints. Matthews is on a hot streak. No, they realize, you know, we have a small chance of beating these guys on the flat sprints. So what do they do today? They get in the break, you know, with DeMarchi, and he's strong. Those guys were flying up front. They almost win the stage. I think they would have if it wasn't for that last little cobbled climb. I just thought that was super interesting. You don't see that from many teams that have won sprints to just 3 stages later say, you know what, let's just go in the breakaway, make everyone else work. We have Matthews as an insurance policy, but we think our chances are better from up front. So I've been impressed with them this whole race.
Yeah, no, they're obviously also, Spencer, you know what happens. You know, if you win a stage early on in the Grand Tour, the morale goes up from the team, and you know everybody is in good spirits, and it's super important. It changes a team if you win early on. You know, it's and after 5-6 days of racing, the difference is made in the head. You know, everybody starts to get tired, and it's just up to, you know, how motivated you are, what you have to defend. And for the moment, Jayco Lilla, the things go smoothly. You know, everything goes quite good, and then you also have more chances to get in the break. I don't think DeMarchi would have won. He would have lost the sprint against Simon Clark, but you know, he was riding strong, riding really strong.
Yeah, since you bring up DeMarchi, I think you guys were maybe suggesting he's getting a little local love. He was riding in.
A lot of local love.
I missed that. What? Explain that. Was he getting the moto?
Well,
was
when you
giving him a little help?
You don't necessarily think about it, but when they show a video, you know, the video feed, and you're looking straight at the person, the breakaway riders, that means that camera is on a motorbike, and that means those riders are directly behind the motorbike. And today, every time they showed the peloton, they're slightly offset. They're on the different side of the road, the opposite side of the road. Every time they showed DeMarchi or Simon Clark in front, it was straight on, which means those guys must have been, I bet they were like a meter behind the motorbike the entire stage. I mean, those Italian motorbikes, that's just odd how they always ride a little bit closer to the Italian riders in the breakaway.
I love it. I love it. And talk about pacing, whether it's a motorbike or a car. Did you guys observe how long Geraint Thomas was behind his car? Now, it was a mechanical. It's not like he got dropped. So maybe they looked the other way. But, man, it looked pretty blatant to me. Did you guys catch that?
I caught it. I thought they were going to punish them. I mean, they were behind Geraint Thomas dropped the chain with, you know, it was like 12K to go, something like that, on a pretty weird.
It was a weird turn where everyone had to bunny hop. Not everyone. A good portion of the riders had to bunny hop some curbs.
There was a curb like in the middle of the road, and so he had to chase a long time. They were cruising behind the Ineos team car. You know, I'm glad they didn't punish them. You just want as many riders as close as possible in the GC, and that it was so chaotic. I mean, the stage through, you know, Napoli's kind of like a beautiful, chaotic city. I thought it was fitting. You're like, whatever, anything goes. There's no rules here. So I just think that the RCS isn't in the business of picking nits on things like that when it comes to major contenders.
And there was another thing I observed when it comes to getting back in the peloton. I think it was Roglic who he had 3 or 4 teammates drop back to help him, but he just took off.
I know, he passed them.
He just didn't even use the freight train to get back.
Well, that's one of the things that sometimes as long if it's your leader, right? As long as as that guy is within the caravan, it's better. You're gonna draft a lot more going from car to car, even if you're not specifically behind your team car. You're gonna have a lot more easy. I mean, it's gonna be more easy to get back. And in those cases, the teammates should just wait in the back of the peloton, or to just bridge that last gap from the last car to the back of the peloton, and then use that strength to move up in the peloton again. It happens a lot that 2 or 3 guys are waiting, and then they get stuck in traffic, and the leader goes forward by himself. I haven't seen that specific incident today, but it happens all the time.
Speaking of Ineos pacing, did you guys catch that the early part of the stage today on stage 6, they were the team that got to the front and blew up the race and dropped Cavendish. It actually helped the breakaway because all the big engines got dropped. They had to sit up and wait for them. After the climb, it gave the break more time to build up a bigger advantage. It meant riders were more tired. They really had a hard time pulling them back in the finish today. What was the thought with that? Were they just trying to put Remco under pressure? Did they not like Mark Cavendish?
I think it was to test. Normally, in my opinion, the thinking behind this is okay. Evenpoel went down. He's going to be stiff. He's going to be hurting. He needs 20, 30 kilometers to warm up. So let's put him under pressure straight away, and see how he reacts. It seemed to be okay for Remco, but I think that was the objective. Keep the pressure on, and you know what? If it doesn't work today, it's maybe he has to do more efforts than normally, and it's just putting little invoices in the bucket. Of okay, the price that Remco had to pay today is a little bit more than normally. Boom, just put it in the bucket so the bucket gets fuller earlier on.
And it could pay dividends tomorrow because the final climb is 27 kilometers long. That's a long climb. It's going to be cold, about freezing, could be raining, probably will be raining, could be snowing. So if Remco's not feeling that good, if I was Ineos and if I was UAE, Joao, Almeida, and Tao Geoghegan Hart both looking really good, I would strike while the iron's hot. I would try to put time into Remco now because you're going to lose it later, that's for sure.
Yeah. Well, maybe Remco is not that affected at all. We'll see, but you have to try at least. Everything adds up, and it's a combination of a lot of different things that happen during the race. So I would expect that Ineos and also Jumbo-Visma, I think, if I suspect that even if he has gone down today, I haven't seen any reports or comments that Roglic is suffering from any injuries. So I think they have to try it too, to make the race hard and at the end and test him, because if they let him recover and they give him 2 or 3 more days, then he's going to strike again in the time trial.
Yep.
Have you guys seen? Is the weather going to clear up, or is it just going to be a messy, sloppy Giro? Because that's changed the dynamics of everything in this first 6 days.
I did a long-term forecast. I couldn't find a nice day. I think today in Napoli was maybe about as nice as it's going to be for a while. We don't know past like stage 12. The forecast could change, but I spend a lot of time in the north of Italy in those mountains, and it can be cold. It can be rainy. It probably will. It's more likely that the weather will not be good. I think we've just have been on a run of years where it's not been bad weather up in the high mountains. I think it's going to be a sloppy, wet race, and I think it's going to play a big part of. It's going to be a big decider in the GC. I mean, Johan, did you think Remco looked a little uncomfortable on stage 4 in the cold and the wet? Like, does he not have a lot of experience racing, just slogging through long stages that are wet and cold?
I think he looked fine. He did have a lot of clothes on.
A lot of clothes, and he kind of took them off at an odd time. He seemed a little confused about when to take them off.
Yeah. I kind of think that he's okay in the bad weather. I've not ever seen anything that he had problems with low temperatures or rain. He won. I think he won that stage, or actually he didn't win it, but it was a really cold stage with a lot of fog and low temperature in the Giro. In the Vuelta last year. I think it's the stage that Jay Vine won. So I think normally he performs okay. So I don't know what the reason exactly why he's so wrapped up when most of the peloton is just, okay, they're obviously protecting themselves, but they're not wearing leg warmers. Or
maybe he did it as protection for hitting the pavement. This is a very risky Giro. Like, I don't know, save some skin. I'm not sure.
You do save some skin for sure.
Yeah,
it definitely helped him on stage 5. He was like bundled. He was like a football player out there, and he probably did save a lot of skin.
Yeah.
All right. What's we're going to get into now the part that a lot of you have been waiting for is Johan's off-the-record untold Giro story. We'll get into that in just a second. Real quick, let's check in with Lance and a couple of our partners with some special offers.
Exciting news. We have a new sponsor of our show today, Caldera Lab. Say goodbye to the generic face wash on your counter because Caldera Lab is here to save the day when it comes to your skin. Backed by a leading clinical trial where 9 out of 10 men experience healthier and visibly improved skin. They created a high-performance men's skincare product line by combining pharmaceutical-grade science along with nature's purest and most potent ingredients. You can start with the regime. That includes the clean slate, the base layer, and the good. As you know, and as you age, you start to see more fine lines. I sort of wish mine were still fine lines. They're not fine anymore. But anyways, also totally committed to transparency, sustainability, and excellence. Today, we have an exclusive offer for our audience so you can try for yourself why so many men trust Caldera Lab for their skincare needs. Get 20% off. All you got to do is head to calderalab.com/themove. Again, that's calderalab.com/themove. Our next partner has a product that I literally use every day. I started taking Athletic Greens, been a couple years now. I really wanted better gut health, more energy, and I kind of hated taking pills and vitamins. I wanted a supplement that actually tastes great. So what is this stuff? 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day off just right, all for less than $3 a day. It's really about taking control of your health. Right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. Let's make it easy. Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you got to do is head to athleticgreens.com/themove. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/themove.
Okay, this is one of the great things about having Johan on the show is the experience as a writer, all those years as a director, and incredible memory. It's like Lance and George were there for a lot of it, but don't seem to recall a lot of moments from their career. But Johan remembers everything, and this is going to be really interesting because there's a lot of behind the scenes things that happen in bike racing, and especially with the Giro, I guess, where they can manipulate things, change things, make adjustments, and you woke up just fired up today.
I know. I mean, no, I had a conversation with somebody, and we were talking about a Giro d'Italia. I know a long time ago. Basically when Laurent Fignon was supposed to win the Giro, he was in the leader's jersey, and that Giro was specifically made for the hero, the Italian hero at that time, Francesco Moser, who was not a super climber. He was an amazing champion. But that Giro was made for him, and there were things going on there that actually were benefiting Moser a lot and were against Fignon. So while we were talking on the phone, I said, "Hey, you remember that year?" And we were also talking about, for example, this year in the Giro, there's a team Koratek. They've been in all the it's. I don't know if it's a professional team or if it's a second division or a third division team. I think it's second division, but anyway, not really known. And people say, why would this team be there? So these are the things that the Giro is known for. And I came to this. My memory flashed up, and I said, this is exactly the same what happened. So I want to go back to the Giro of 2008. It's 15 years ago already. Wow. So we're talking end of 2007. Discovery Channel hadn't renewed their contract. I was debating whether I would stay in cycling or not because we had all those wins with Lance. Then this was the first time that we won with another rider than Lance, the Tour de France, with Alberto Contador in 2007. So I kind of was saying, I'm just gonna, this is it, this is enough. We've done it, and I get a call in August of 2007. of Astana through Vyacheslav Ekimov. So Ekimov was a director on Discovery. They had called the Kazakh leaders of that team had called Ekimov to see if they could talk to me. Astana had troubles in the Tour de France of 2007. Their team was thrown out because Vinokurov had tested positive, and so first he was thrown out, and then the whole team was thrown out. So that team was in trouble. So I took on, finally, they made me an offer I could not refuse. So I took on the lead of Team Astana and brought some important riders to the team. Contador, Leipheimer, Brajkovic, Kluden was there. I mean, I think I took like seven riders to the team, and then a bunch of staff. So we start, I reorganized the team a little bit, and I have like the feeling this is going to be a long monologue. Sorry, Spencer.
No,
I don't let you.
I'm good.
It's quite all right.
I want to tell the story in detail because there's some details that are important. Anyway, so we start the season, the preparation, revamp the team a little bit. And we already heard from the Tour de France of ASO that because of what happened in 2007, that Astana was not wanted at the Tour, was banned from all the ASO races, which are a lot, right? So I said, you know what, I have to accept that. There's nothing I can do against that because it is what it is. So I designed the program to say, okay, we're not doing the Tour, but we're going to focus on other races. The Vuelta had already said that, it was not property of the Tour de France yet, the Vuelta back then. So that obviously we had Contador on the team. They would love Contador in the race. So I designed an alternative calendar, saying, okay, Giro, Vuelta. And then one of my main obsessions was, since ASO doesn't want us, the Dauphiné Libéré was not property of ASO yet either. And so I said, we want to make a statement there to show that we have strong riders. I wanted to do a clean sweep of the podium, 1, 2, 3 in the Dauphiné. That was our main goal before the Tour, to really make a statement. Anyway, long story short, what happens? We are at training camp in New Mexico, of all places, in Albuquerque.
Wait, how did you get drugged down to Albuquerque? Was this a sponsor?
That's another story. That's another story. We went there. It was a bit of altitude and stuff. I mean, anyways. So we went to Albuquerque.
Lucky.
And so during that training camp, surprisingly, I get the news that Team Astana is also not welcome at the Giro nor any RCS races, which is the counterpart of ASO. I said, wow, that's a shock, So basically, how are you supposed to put the calendar together if ASO and RCS doesn't want you at the races? So I call up the guy, the main guy of RCS back then. His name he's not there anymore now. Angelo Zomenian. Who was first a journalist, then he was like the head of La Gazzetta dello Sport, which is the sponsoring newspaper of the Giro, which is also the reason, for example, why the pink jersey is pink, because the Gazzetta dello Sport was before, maybe it still now, was printed on pink paper. And I talked to him from the US, said, hey, Angelo, what's happening? He said, yeah, I can't take you guys because, what happened last year, it's bad for the image of the sport. And I have this pressure of ASO. They asked me if I could do the same as them. So I set a precedent and, I have to work together with them. So I can't take you guys. You're out of the Giro and out of all the races. Nothing to do about it. I said, man, I think it's ridiculous. But anyways, you're taking whoever you want, and so that's it, So I say, okay, I'm gonna move on, and so no Giro, no Tour. We start to focus on other races. We win the Tour of the Basque Country. We win. Don't know if we won Tour of Catalonia. We won Tour of Switzerland. We won a bunch of other races, important races that were independent, and. Finally, we are sorry, we are at the Tour of Romandy, and just after Andreas Kleuden had won the mountain stage, I got a call from THEMOVE. No, sorry, I got a call from Angelo Zomignan, who said, "Hey, Johan, ciao, Johan, amico, my friend." I said, "Wow, this is going to be a strange call." Because he didn't want anything of me, and now I'm Johan amico. So he said, "Hey, and this was 10 days before the start of the Giro, by the way." He said, "I think there is a small possibility. There is a possibility that you guys can start the Giro." I said, "Yeah, okay, fine, but we're not coming. We have our plan. This is 10 days before the Giro. Our main riders are preparing for the Dauphiné. We can't race." He said, "Yeah, I think you should come, give it some thoughts, but I think we're going to see each other at the start of the Giro," he said. So I said, "That's strange." Listen, I said, "Listen, Angelo, we can't come. It's as simple as that. We can't come." So half an hour later, I received a phone call from THEMOVE, who was one of the directors of our team and who was my Russian interpreter. And he had received a call from the Minister of Sports of Kazakhstan saying that we were going to go to the Giro. And I said, "Eki, listen, call the guy back. And if we really have to go, we can go, but it's not going to be a strong team. We are not prepared. So if we really have to go, we'll go." THEMOVE calls back. 10 minutes later, he calls me back. He said, "Johan." And he said, literally, the guy was shouting at the phone, the minister, shouting at the phone. And he said, "Hey, listen, you little piece of Olympic champion. If I'm telling you that we're going to the Giro, we're going to the Giro. And we will go with Contador, Kleuden, and Leipheimer." And Eki said, I think we should go with those guys," because this guy was not joking. Oh, anyway, so then I call Contador, who was on holiday. He was literally at the beach when I called him. I said, "Listen, Alberto, we change of plans. We have to go to the Giro." He said, "Yeah, but I can't go to the Giro." I said, "Yeah, but you have to come." But wow. Listen, I don't ask anything from you. Just prepare your suitcase, leave your holiday place, go home, get all your stuff ready, and I just want you to be at the start of the Giro. That's all I ask. Anyways, then fast forward, I discover, and this is where it becomes really interesting, and the behind the scenes negotiations or whatever strange deals that have been done, right? So if we get in, I start to ask myself, if we get in the Giro, then there's too many teams. So a team needs to get out of the Giro. And there was the same as Team Koratek now. There was this team in the Giro was selected, and everybody in the peloton was saying, "What the hell? Why is this team in the Giro?" It's called NGC Medical. It was an Italian-Swiss combination. It was a third division team. I've never seen that team race at all. Didn't even know what the jersey looked like. But this team, all of a sudden, was not allowed to participate in the Giro because we came in, Astana.
Oh, I'm thinking about both sides of the coin here, Johan. Alberto getting the call, you're racing in 10 days. And this team, these young guys, "Mom, Dad, I'm racing the Giro.
Yeah.
I'm living the dream."
Yeah.
10 days prior. Ow.
Then now I'm going to explain you what happened.
Okay.
So then I finally found out that Zomignan had made a behind-the-scenes deal with the Kazakh government and received, I'm not sure, but I've heard, I can't confirm this, but I've heard 300,000 euros in cash to let Astana in. And Zomenian has, of course, taken advantage of the situation. Said, okay, if you guys come, first of all, you pay me 300,000, and I want Contador, I want Leipheimer, I want Klöden. So the Kazakhs gave in, they agreed on it, and that was the deal that he made. I did not know this, I found out later. Then, on the other hand, Zomenian had also received, I don't know how much, but a substantial amount of money of NGC to get this team in, because it did not make any sense otherwise. So NGC paid the Giro or paid Zomenian directly, I don't know, to get their team in the Giro. Now, finally, they were not in the Giro. And so, again, Italian fix, the Italian fix. What happens? We have Team Lampre, which is the precursor actually of Team UAE nowadays, because that's how UAE started. They took over Lampre, or the structure of Lampre. And so Lampre, at that time, they had problems. Two of their riders had doping problems in the lead up to the Giro. And there was pressure that Zomenian needed to kick them out, but it was an Italian team. And so what did Zomenian do? He had this marvelous idea that he forced, because he had power over Lampre now, to let them in. But he said, okay, you guys can stay, but here's what you're going to do. You're going to make new jerseys for the Giro, and you're going to have a new sponsor who's not going to pay you, but it's going to be here on the right on the shoulder, on the left shoulder or on the right shoulder, NGC, big letters on the shoulder of Lampre. So finally, we were in. He got his money from the Kazakhs. NGC was in, because he didn't want to give the money back to NGC, and everybody was happy. And finally, what happened is we went to the Giro. Contador, super talented rider, even if he was not training. He got into shape during the Giro and ended up winning the Giro.
Wasn't even planning on it.
It wasn't even planning on. And then this is basically what was really. I mean, I have to laugh when I think back on and see that image in front of me. So finally, of course, during the Giro, I found out what had been happening behind my back and behind the back of everybody, of why we were in. And then, the Giro, we win the Giro, and the Kazakh leaders of the federation and the government had organized a celebration party at the end of the Giro. So, the whole team stayed there, and the Kazakhs was there, and Angelo Zomenian showed up at that party. Of course, they had requested him to be there, and it's a pity I don't have the picture of him, but he at some point he showed up in the typical traditional ethnic dress of Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan, Central Asian typical dress code. It's called the shapan. That kind of outfit. And so I still have that picture in front of me of Zomenian standing there with this typical Kazakh dress, the hat, next to the Minister of Sport. I said, okay, now it really all makes sense. This is why we were here, and here we have it,
Wow.
So that's, I said, this would be nice to bring up in a podcast. And, the Giro is a race like no other, and a lot of things happen that don't happen in other races. And this
that was my question. Is it the Giro in particular that makes moves like this more so than any other?
I think it's the Italian. And things have changed a lot. These kind of things are probably not happening anymore now. But this particular thing, I can go into detail about it because I lived it. But then when I hear stories from earlier on, like the Moser story and the Fignon story and other things, Eddie Merckx all of a sudden getting thrown out of the race. He got disqualified for doping, which Eddie, as of today, still is adamant that he never did it. We will never know. And a bunch of other stories that happened in the Giro. So I thought that was very, very interesting, and I'm happy I can share it with with our listeners so many years later, you know?
Oh, that's great. That's awesome. That's awesome.
Well, it is. I love this guy's playing the game. That's actually some impressive problem solving skills. How do I appease the sponsor who paid to get in? Oh, Lamprey's in trouble. Let me throw them. I would love to have been at the lunch between the Lamprey director and the Giro director when he told him, you're going to have this sponsor on your.
That's quite a collector's jersey now. Right?
Although I have to say though that after that Giro, because I think they ended up second or third in that Giro, Lampre, with one of their guys. And actually, NGC, in the years later, became actually a co-sponsor of Lampre because of this. So, you know.
It worked out.
And they're really the only race, I mean, maybe other races do this, they kind of cater the route to stars, right? Like if there's 3 time trials here, Remco is a time trialist. Is that a coincidence? I don't think so.
Absolutely.
I mean, yeah.
The reason why they did that is because they wanted Remco. For example, I'm gonna keep going a little bit on this Astana Giro story. You know, so 2008, first we were hated, then we were wanted, then we were loved. You know, and then 2009, what happens? Lance makes his comeback on Astana. From the beginning of the season, I had Angelo Zomignan on the phone twice a month. Would be nice if Lance does the Giro. And so finally, Lance did the Giro. And, you know, in the decision-making period when we were deciding, he even offered, you know, if you want, we can change some of the stages, or if you would like to have a specific time trial, you know, we could fix that. You know, so he offered to adapt the course for him. You know, I said, listen, you know, the reason why Lance is going to race the Giro is because he's been 3 years out of the sport. He needs racing, so he needs hard racing. So just leave the course as it is, you know. But then we were obviously, you know, his favorite team, because obviously Lance brought the world to the Giro instead of just Italy to the Giro. And then the year after, to go on it, I had another little encounter with our friend, the Giro director. 2009, we left Astana, we created Radio Shack. We didn't go to the Giro with any, I can't remember, we didn't go with any big riders, but there was an incident in the Giro that there was one part of a stage after, like in the second half of the Giro, there was a downhill, which was considered super dangerous with lots of rocks or gravel or stuff, and there was protest of the riders. And then the teams came together, and finally we said, okay, we're going to protest, and they need to take that downhill out and find an alternative route. So obviously, big panic. You know, the Giro didn't want to do that. Finally, we could put the pressure on, and they had to find an alternative route. And Zomignan found out that I was one of the 4 or 5 most pushing team managers to get this done. So obviously, then I was not anymore amico, my friend. I was again the bad guy. Next thing I know, 2 days after this incident, I got a little visit from one of the UCI judges, commissaires, who strangely came to measure the height of our team cars. We had a deal with a brand then, which was out of the model that they could provide us was not within the rules of what the height of a team car could be. We were a few centimeters over. So we had fixed this because we had the race cars. We had lowered the suspension so they were within the rules, the race cars. But for some reason, there was one race car that was not at the Giro, so we had another car in the caravan, which was outside of the regulations. And they came to measure this. This is already in the second part of the Giro, so this is the month of May. We've been using these cars since the beginning of the season. all of a sudden, coincidentally, this guy comes to check the height. So obviously Zomanian has given the instructions to the commissaire to come and mess with us. And so that car was forced to go in the last position of the caravan because it was considered or declared out of the rules. So I went from hated to being amico to being not dying in a period of 2 years.
Awesome story. On that note, we'll wrap this up. We'll be back this weekend to see how the first full week, actually it'll be more of it by then, of the Giro has gone. And, Spencer, thanks for the heads up that tomorrow is going to be potentially icy. Long climb finish
to see how that plays out.
And that's a good day to attack Remco, in your opinion. So there's something to watch for there. Anyhow, we'll wrap it up. You can write to us, TheMove@WeDo.team. You can get your new WeDo merch at WeDo.team online, www.WeDo.team. Get your season pass, which includes outcomes. I got to listen to that every day on my road trip too, which it just made watching the next day that much more interesting. Even if you aren't into sports betting, it's a great show that you guys put together. So anyhow, we'll wrap this up. Thank you, Johan Spencer. I appreciate it, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks, JB.